At 9 a.m. one morning in 1983, this 3 months old Egyptian baby was rushed to the hospital. He had severe diarrhea and was extremely dehydrated. Sadly, he was just about to pass away, but at 9:50, the nurses started feeding him some weird magical water. By 10 a.m., somehow the baby had become more energetic and started sipping eagerly from the spoon. And by 12 p.m., a miracle happened. The baby had gotten his strength back and now was fully recovered. So, what was in that magical water? This miracle medicine that they fed him was water, salt, sugar. That's it. The simple combination of ingredient has saved 16 million lives worldwide and is considered to be the one of the greatest medical inventions of 20th century. The thing is, you all had it at least once in your life, but you may recognize it with its other name, ORS. But you know what really sad? Most people in the world don't even know the name of the Indian doctor who pioneered this incredible invention and chose not to make any money from it so that he could save millions of lives. This is the incredible story of Dr. Dilip Mahalanabis. My name is Yash. You are watching The Theory Room by Yash Not Found. In 1971, East Pakistan, which is now known as Bangladesh, erupted into a brutal war for independence. A struggle for democracy, a struggle to hold general elections. The violence was horrifying and millions of refugees fled across the border into India. A total of 10 million refugees sought sanctuary in India, and by June of that year, while the war was still going on, the deadly monsoon rain arrived. It started washing over 10 million humans living in the crowded refugees camp along with the Indian Bangladesh border. This camp has no proper sanitation, no clean water, and barely any medical facilities. It was quite literally the perfect breeding ground for diseases. And this is exactly what happened. Cholera attacked the camps like a curse from the gods. Now, let me explain why cholera is so terrifying. The bacteria doesn't kill you by attacking your organs like other diseases. No, no, no. It's much more simple and brutal. It forces your body to push out all of its fluid through violent diarrhea and vomiting. You can start losing up to 20 liters of fluid every single day. Your dehydrated blood is literally becomes too thick to pump. You can go from perfectly healthy to dead within 24 hours. And this is the terrible situation where Dr. Mahalanabis enters the story. He was only 36 years old and he had gone to the volunteer his services at a refugee camp. When Dr. Mahalanabis walked into the camp, this is what he saw. Two small houses acting as a temporary hospital, 16 beds in total, and 350,000 sick refugees standing outside waiting to be treated. Even if the small team of volunteer doctors worked 24 hours a day, it was mathematically impossible to treat everyone. And as if that it wasn't bad enough, there was a bigger problem. You said that cholera was only treated using intravenous fluids or IVs. But IV equipment is not exactly cheap and it is not easy to maintain and operate them in the middle of the damn battlefield. And on top of that, only specially trained and qualified medical personnel were allowed to inject IVs into patients. And in that camp, there were only two people who were trained to do that. One of the doctors later described the scene. To treat these people with IV saline, you literally had to kneel down in their feces and is in their vomits. The floor were covered with severely ill patients. There were no room to even walk. I mean, the situation was so terrible and so hopeless that you couldn't really blame the doctors if they gave up. Back then, doctor believes that when someone has severe diarrhea, their intestines are not able to absorb nutrition, and this is why IVs were essential. So you basically have to bypass the digestive system and inject the nutrients into in the form of sodium directly into your bloodstream. But Dr. Mahalanabis said, I don't think that's true. Pointing to some research done in 1960s, Dr. Mahalanabis claimed that no, even in severe diarrhea, the intestines could still absorb sodium if, and this is the important part, only if glucose was also present in the mix. The glucose, or in simple words, sugar, helped full of the sodium, or in simple words, salt into the bloodstream. Now, this wasn't his invention. Scientists like David Nain and Richard Cash had already proven that it worked in 1968, but they had only used it at addition to IV therapy, kind of like a top up, like an insurance. What Dr. Mahalanabis was about to do had never done before. He was going to use oral rehydration as the primary treatment, as the only treatment in filthy condition in the middle of literally battlefield. Years later, he said, I had no choice but to go ahead and use ORS to the maximum use. I was confident that it could work. Now, just take a second and think about the weight of that decision. If he is wrong, hundreds of people will die. And that could even prevent him, like if he had just stuck in the conventional treatment. I mean, his career would definitely be over and he might also face criminal charges. But what if he is right? Thousands more will be saved. Dr. Mahalanobis prepared a simple solution: 22 gram of glucose, 3 gram of sodium chloride, 2.5 gram of sodium bicarbonate per liter of water. Then his team mixed into a large drum, and then over the next 8 weeks, they treated 3,700 cholera patients using just ORS. And then came the real benefit. Instead of using up the precious time to doctors and nurses, now they could just teach family members how to give it to patients. There literally wasn't enough medical staff to treat everyone, and this is something they couldn't have done with the IV treatment. They called it ORSaline and printed pamphlets in Bengali explaining how to mix and use it. They even got a Bangladeshi radio station to broadcast the instruction to the thousands of people. Now, there was nothing to do except wait and pray that their gamble had worked. The results were beyond anyone's wildest dreams. The death rate dropped from 30% to 3.6% to just 1%. That was nothing, almost nothing. Required no special medical equipment and could be handled by anyone who knows how to hold a cup. When the head of World Health Organization's Bacterial Diseases Unit visited the refugee camp, he couldn't believe what he was saying. People who should have been dead were walking around. Kids who could have become statistics were playing football in the mud. Now you would think that after such a dramatic success, OS would have been embraced by the international medical community overnight. But you would be wrong. When Dr. Mahalanabis tried to publish his finding, journal after journal rejecting his paper, they just couldn't agree that a simple packet of salt and sugar could be a major treatment. And it would go 7 more years before OS became the mainstream. ORS became the mainstream and widely accepted. 7 long years in which millions of lives would have been saved. But here's what really blows my mind. When ORS did become famous and mainstream, the doctor could have easily filed a patent on it, started a pharmaceutical company, and made millions from it. But he never filed a single patent, and when asked why, he simply said, I believe that this knowledge should belong to all of the humanity. Dr. Dilip Mahalanabis continued his work quietly from 1975 to 79. He worked with the WHO setting up cholera control program in Yemen, Egypt, and Afghanistan. He kept researching about OS, means ORS, kept improving the formula, and kept saving lives. Much later, he did get some recognition, international recognition, like he won 2 major awards in 2002 and 2006. When he finally passed away in October 2002, most of the world and his own country didn't notice. Today, ORS saves 1.5 million lives every single year. UNICEF distributes 500 million packets annually. There's no doubt that this simple packet is one of the most important medical inventions of 20th century. And so I have to ask, if the doctor had been born in America or in Europe, or if he had worked in at like Harvard or Oxford or like MIT instead of Kolkata, would he have remained as unknown as he is today? We celebrate entrepreneurs. We make millions by gatekeeping and monetizing other people's hard work. And on the other hand, we ignore scientists who literally save millions of lives and refuse to take a single penny for it. So listen, do me a favor. The next time you see this packet, you will remember the name Dr. Dilip Mahalanabis. Remember that monsoon of 1971, when a doctor forced into an impossible situation changed the world, because not all heroes wear capes. Some just carry some simple packets of salt and sugars. Thank you.